Hi, welcome back to the Jac and Glen channel. I'm Jackie.
I'm my husband, Glenn.
He's my husband, Glenn.
Hey, before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that bell notification so you won't miss any of our reviews. But this is an interview. We got our AJ on straight off of Ready to Love. What's going on, sir? How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well.
We're doing well, man. Doing well. No complaints. It's a nice sunny day, and we're relaxing a little bit, so it's all good.
Is sun behind y'all? I can't tell.
No, not behind us. Outside.
Outside. It's outside. It's sunny outside, but it's a nice, beautiful day. Not behind me, but it's a nice, beautiful day. Though.
Yeah.
All is well, man. All is well. Man, we're not even gonna prolong this. Let's get it started.
All right, let's get it popping.
Let's get it popping, man. I know people asked you before, and you've been on a lot of interviews, but again, I always start this off this way, and I always ask the person, give us something that when people at home see you, or when you back in Chicago, and they ask, "Who's AJ? Who are you?" And I know you're a human being, I know that, but who are you growing up? Who are you?
Man, I was just a kid that was that didn't want to choose between being smart and being cool. That's basically it. And I kind of have always found the medium in that, being able to develop yourself in a way that's unexpected. A lot of times people would never know what it is that I did, right? They wouldn't think engineer, because it was like most engineers don't have, a personality. They're not funny. They're analytical. So I have an analytical side and I have a creative side. And so I've always kind of made sure I have developed in a really holistic sense. That's about it.
Definitely. So you basically, when you in school, you created a nice little swag for yourself. People knew you were smart, but you could also blend in with other people throughout the school setting.
Absolutely. And I grew up in the hood. So, you know what I'm saying? You still got to be able to navigate that and, have a few fights, avoid a few fights, avoid a few things that you're going to see in the streets, or understand what's happening and having that awareness. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's not often that you see people that have book smarts and street smarts at the same time.
So how creative were you by navigating your way out of negativity?
Man, I don't even look at it like that, because I think, even today, most of our movies, right, we celebrate people that are on the fringes of society. We look at and say, this person is ingenuitive, they're charismatic, or, they were a good leader, or, et cetera, et cetera. And we celebrate it to the point of where when we watching it, we looking like, the principles are so cut and dry and straightforward. You looking at it and be like, oh no, his mama got to die. Oh no, you be right there. You be right there with them, because you understand what they're living by and the code that they're living by. And so I think that was probably the biggest thing that I picked up on, being outside and seeing people do things that weren't considered, necessarily legal.
Definitely, because you had the street smarts and the book smarts.
Sure.
Which basically that kept you into where you line at. We saw this past episode of Ready to Love, or we saw your mom. How much of an influence did your mom have in your life as you was growing up, as you was navigating your way through the streets of Chicago?
Before you answer that question, I got to say this. When I saw your mom come on there, I was like, oh yeah, she bout it. She bout it. I just like the way she had, her poise, how she sat in there like, let me see what this lady about.
Yeah, no, she didn't really dig in. So my mother is, she was the original. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. She kind of was the person that definitely, I know most Black households, told everybody, hey, you have to go to school and you will go to college type of thing. Is not a question. But, my mother graduated high school at like 15. She graduated college at 19. And so, to think about being all the way out of school before you're able to drink legally is kind of, saying something. So I wasn't ever one of those kids that kind of got a whole lot of accolades or a whole lot of gifts or bribes for getting good grades in school. It was kind of like, oh, well, it was to be expected kind of type of thing.
Yeah. I can relate. It was like that in my household. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you should be getting good grades. My dad was a teacher, a science
Sure.
teacher at that, and he was
Uh-huh.
a preacher. My mom was a nurse, so it was like,
Yeah.
you know what time it is.
So she
Yeah.
laid
Both
that
both my
basically.
parents were both my parents were accountants.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So they laid the expectation early that this is okay. This is what you need to do. This is where you need to be at, and this is achievement. Where we want you to go.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you? You mentioned that you juggle both worlds. Was it hard for you to navigate or to be involved? Because of who your parents were, as far as being accountants or being professionals, to navigate both ends of the spectrum, what they expected and what you expected from yourself.
Um, kinda, kinda, but I don't. It wasn't really like that for me because my parents split early, and
Hmm.
so my mom mostly raising me, and she worked a lot. She had her own things that she struggled with. So school kind of definitely is where I flourished, um, and it was kind of where I could do whatever. So it was never like a push or where you had to do any one particular thing. I kind of I went to a lot of different schools as well, so it was a lot of different stuff for me to get into.
So you mentioned that you went to a lot of different schools growing up. Did you have a hard time making friends, or were you the type of person that just was like, oh, hey, I want to know him? He seems pretty cool. Did you have, like attract people like that? Were you a personable person like that?
No, absolutely. So I was definitely a person that kind of approached people and found folks interesting and saying, "Hey," that whole thing of like attaching to a person and saying that they had to be with me every day type of thing wasn't there because I've been to so many schools. So it was like a more so of a enjoy people while they're there, and then when they're not there, to not necessarily be too offended at it, right? And so I think even you see that in the season of where
Hmm.
I would have good dates, a good chemistry with people, and I think that after those moments were done, the expectation about what they felt should continue to happen based on that moment, it wasn't there or wasn't familiar to them because they were looking for certain things that I just didn't do.
Right.
Right.
So
When
I
did you
think that's
fall
where
in?
the piece of where it's like, AJ feels like, he wants the women to chase him came from. And it's not that. It's, I just looked at that as like, okay, if you felt that way, that means when you were around me and the conversations that we were in, they were enjoyable and you wanted to have that again, which is a different conversation versus saying like, I want you to chase me, but yeah.
No, I think talk about the show a little bit. Your conversation with women was on a different level. I think sometimes your intellectualism were some high for some of the women that what we saw because you wasn't like most other guys. We always saw
We
you
didn't
laid
see
back,
much of
kind
it
of
though.
right. You didn't
Yeah,
see much. We saw you like laid back. The conversation that you did have with women, it was like yours was more chill, and you really would thought you could see your wheels turning before you said what you said.
oh, look, you gotta go ahead and even though I did a poor job of it, still they helped me out in the editing room. But you gotta go ahead and know that what you're saying is going to be looked at through a different type of lens. Even these
Mhm.
interviews, some of the comments that happen after these interviews are really interesting. Well, AJ said this, so then they go down like a whole rabbit hole of what that must mean based on me having said this. I expect that to happen in this interview too, but it'll be fine.
No problem. When did you fall in love with music, man? They put you as a music producer. When did you fall in love with playing music, listening to music, and what's your favorite genre to listen to?
Man, so I started off as just playing three songs. In my eyes, I started music late. I didn't start, playing music till 14. I was graduating 8th grade. Um, I picked up the electric bass. I played in the jazz band all throughout high school. Um, And then I just didn't want to major in music in college because I felt like, that was the fastest way to become a music teacher. And I was like, I didn't want to be, I didn't want to be a music teacher, right? You look at all, and nothing's wrong with being a music teacher, but to look at all of the people that we celebrated as being awesome musicians, all of them mostly were self-taught.
Right.
Whether it was John Coltrane, Charlie Bird, Sam Maceo, Barry White, you name them. It's not a lot of people that were quote unquote like classically trained and went through school that we say, maybe Kenny G or somebody like that, but it's like, that is looked at a certain type of way. But like gospel musicians and things like that, they're all kind of like self-taught and they picked up the things that they picked up from being in just playing situations.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. That is usually late, like 14 years old. It's like, wow, you did pick up on it late. Is it just it piqued your interest at that time? You were busy doing other things?
No, I actually didn't want to sing. I didn't want to sing the songs and graduating from 8th grade. So I didn't want to sing those songs. And they was basically saying, hey, you're either going to sing or you're going to play one of these instruments. So like I was the valedictorian of 8th grade. And so I didn't really miss anything as far as like school. I was already like not in the classroom a whole lot. And so taking like the last 3 months of school to learn how to play an instrument, to play 3 songs kind of was like, oh, okay, cool. So I wasn't in class. I was learning how to play an instrument to at least to be able to play 3 songs for like the last half of the school year. And so that was definitely an incentive, and it was something that I enjoyed at the end. And just having that nervous feeling of about to play, music in front of a full crowd, and then it going away once you started playing. I don't think that feeling ever really goes away. I think you hear artists, talk about it a lot, saying that they still get nervous. Big name artists, they say, hey, I get nervous right before I'm going to go on stage. And then the moment that I'm on, everything kind of like goes away. You're on, now you're performing, and because you practiced it so many times.
Yeah. Um, I'm right there with you. So I sing, and I've had to explain that to my husband before. He's like, you sing all the time. Why is it that for this, like I sometimes, I'll get shaky, my heart's beating out my chest. I'm like, you don't understand. You still have a little bit of nerves depending on the crowd that you're singing in, if it's people you know or if it's people you don't know. Sometimes you feel a little more free. If they don't know me, I don't feel judged. I'm gonna go out here, I'm gonna do my thing. Like you said, I've practiced, and it's gonna show. Yeah, so that is absolutely true. It doesn't matter how long you've been performing. And I think that's a sign of well, I don't want to be too churchy, but it's like a sign of like a surrender, you know what I mean? That it's
Sure.
not really me. It's not really me. But I'm letting the music speak through me. Or if you're in church, I'm letting, God speak through me. So, but yeah, I absolutely get that.
No,
He don't
because
get it.
it. So especially if you're recording music and you're producing
Yeah.
music, it's almost like for anybody that writes in a diary, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
wrote a diary or a journal or whatever, and you catalog it by year, and so you write in a book for a whole year, whether it's structured or not. It could be just random thoughts you writing in it, and you go back and look at it 2-3 years later and read it. It's almost like it's a different person. You're experiencing
Mm-hmm.
like a completely different person a lot of times, and you're able to recognize your growth. Music is the same. So you have so many artists, I'm not abnormal. I'm one of them, where even things that people really enjoy, they go back and listen to it, and they can't listen to it, or they go back and listen to some of the older stuff that they did and they really appreciate it about where they are now. Is both of those two things that happen. Sometimes not understanding and knowing all of the rules of music free you up to do things that you
Yeah.
would never think about if you know had all of the knowledge about music, and I think that that's some of the reason why most music sounds the same when you try to make it be some type of formula. Like just let the mood strike you, and whatever comes up comes up.
Feel you on that. Well, let's get to Ready to Love. I enjoyed the, in fact, real quick, one more thing. You still playing? What you playing now? You playing the bass or the guitar? What are the keys? I mean, or the keys or the bass? What do you?
I'm mostly playing the piano now. The bass guitar is cool. I really would like to get back to playing it, but it's not necessarily a solo instrument, right? You're playing in the bass in your house is really one note at a time, or unless you Bootsy Collins, somebody like that, and playing chords on the bass. But so that's what got me more involved in playing the piano, because it was just me. I wasn't playing in the band anymore.
And then, I mean, how else could you serenade somebody with a freshly written song, I Choose You, on the bass? It's not going to come across the same way. You got to play it on the piano.
Unless I'm a different type of bass player, but no, it wouldn't be the same. I would be intolerable if I knew how to sing. I'm God don't make mistakes. He knew not to give me that talent.
Lord have mercy.
Hey, me,
you thought Liz and Dave was something else singing on the first day. I would have sang every episode. You would have saw me every episode. I would have been singing.
Right. Oh, what'd you say? What'd you say? You want me to sing?
No,
okay.
No, I don't.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about H. You'd been like, what? Huh? A yawn would have been like,
oh. Singing every note.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had to yawn. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, so when we got the Radio Love, AJ, you say smooth dude, intellectual. How did you end up on Ready to Love? I just can't imagine you having a problem finding dates or finding love. So how did you end up on the TV show Ready to Love?
Man, a random DM a couple times. So it was, they found me on Instagram, and that's kind of, at the time I wasn't, and still, I probably lack a whole lot of like social media skill. I don't put a lot of time into it. Probably even should put a little bit more into it. But I don't know. I thought that they were maybe just pulling my chain at first, until it kind of happened again. And then I responded to it. And then, somebody said, hey, well, you should at least watch one of the episodes or watch, the show and see what it's about. It's not what it is that you're thinking. And then I talked to other people that I knew, and kind of got what they felt about it. And, everybody was kind of like, well, you should do it. You don't know necessarily what happened. And I just opened myself up to being a part of that process. The only thing was I just didn't want to be the villain. So, that was the only one thing that I communicated to the producers, because I know that they needed, so many personality types and so many different types of people. I think if they wanted to, they could have easily, painted me as the villain more so than a quiet guy. So.
Yeah, there was some episodes that you was teetering and tottering on the line though. Yeah, there was some episodes where you was on that line of, what, we may like this bro, or we may say this bro, he's being a villain, right? But we get there in a minute down the road with some of the teeter-tottering things that you had going on.
I want to say this real quick. It seems like most of the people that we've talked to, when we talk to them about coming to Ready to Love, that's been the theme. Most people have gotten like, oh, my friends say I should go for the show, or I got a message from somebody. It's like, we haven't really found anybody that really sought out to be on the show. It was like somebody else was like, hey, you should do it. Or they got reached out to. So I'm finding that to be unique on this show. It's not like.
It's definitely unique because, again, you wasn't a villain, but you were everybody's chocolate drop.
Man, chocolate drop, chocolate drip, Mr. Goodbar, chocolate.
Yeah, Mr. Goodbar.
I was a lot. That was probably the best one, Mr. Goodbar. All the other ones are kind of like, but
because when you walked on the scene, Stacey's head turned. Everybody was like, "Oh, who's this right here?"
It's the beard. It's the beard. I say it's the beard. Absolutely.
So when you got there, who was your eyes? Who were your eyes on? Did you know anybody?
Did you
know anybody when you got there?
No, so the people that I knew didn't. They came later. So I knew Black, Christian.
Right. Everybody
I
knew
knew
Christian.
Kyra. Obviously, I knew Kyra.
Right.
And that was about it. I was actually surprised. I was like, man, they managed to find 19 other people, or 18 rather, that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but no,
So
as far as who caught my eye, man, it was really easy for me. Venetia, but you saw how that conversation went when she said that she wasn't interested in having any more kids. I kind of didn't pursue that any further than that. So it was like Liz, Stacy, Chrysanthemum, and then Kyra and Alexis. So they were always, and they push you and ask you every day, like, who are your top, who's the bottom, and I would like say all five of them, and I would say like all five of those people every time, and it's like, AJ, when are you gonna go ahead and narrow this down? I'm like, yo, it's been 4 days. Like, what do you mean?
right.
So it was a lot of pressure for you to like really be on the phone, and just trying to have as much conversation or as much interaction with a person as possible to kind of see how you felt about them.
You talked about being on the phone, and we mentioned Ron talks about being on the phone a lot. How much did that consume your life? Being at home, because this previous season there was that resort. This, you're at home, you're still doing your day to day. You have production, you got your real. What was stressful for you to manage that time?
Man, you didn't have enough hours in the day. You definitely didn't.
Right.
Because a lot of those conversations, if they were going good, they lasted an hour. I'm not a person that has figured out how to have the 20-minute, the 15-minute, the 30-minute conversation to say I had it. Like, if I'm really in a conversation with someone, and you can tell even from these interviews that I've done, they've been long. Like, we're gonna talk for a while, and so to have that conversation with one person, and it'd be an hour or 2 hours, and then to try to pick back up and have another one. By the third person, it was a wrap. So it was. I can only really ever talk to about 3 people in a day, but it took up probably about a good portion of my day, probably about a good 5, maybe 6 hours. One of those days, I think I talked to one person maybe 4 or 5 hours. So
Wow.
I think I did that on a couple of occasions, because it's like, again, especially when you're not able to, be in complete control of how you're going to date and who you're dating and how you're seeing them and all of that. So you have to kind of take what you can get, and then add COVID on top of it, and not being able to move around, and, being in the bubble and having to self-quarantine and stuff. It definitely limited, how you were interacting with people.
Would you have rather been on the resort like the previous season, or been at home?
No, that's a completely different set of issues right there. Being on the resort, where not only are you there trying to connect with people, but you have this element of where there's essentially 24-hour access, and you also see them going on other dates with other people, and so you see it. To hear about somebody dating somebody else and maybe liking and connecting with someone is one thing, but to see it, and then after they had a date, to act like it didn't happen, to try to talk to them, I would find that a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I know it. I feel like that would add more of because it's not a competition, but it makes it more like competition. You know what I mean? Because like you said, it's like, okay, I know you went out with so and so. I know you went out with so and so. So now I got to act like, okay, that didn't happen. Like you said.
And then plus you have the extra bonus of anybody can end up anywhere at any time of the day if they're not, on camera. And so, yeah, that would have been, for me, that would have been, it would have changed the complexity of the show entirely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, it wouldn't have been all the extra dating that may not have been on camera, or the extra dating that you like I said, 24-hour access. They had 24
Sure.
hour access to you at a resort. So here you can kind of, okay, maybe I want to talk to you, I want to talk to them. On a resort, it seemed like everybody would know everybody's business. Watching the last season, everybody knew what would be going on. Here, more so, you guys can kind of play off of not people not knowing what's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, speaking of that first date, your first date with Alexis, right?
Mm-hmm.
You and Alexis go out. Did you find, and the way we saw it, was she too sexual for you?
No, I definitely, again, I've mentioned and talked about this. I was a willing participant in the, sexual innuendo battle. Like, I'm witty. I like to have witty joust, and she was very funny, and we laughed and joked, and we played all of the funny back and forth things. But I kept it in mind, like, yo, this is the very first date. Let's not jump the gun here. This is the very first woman. I had other interests in other women that were there, and I didn't want to be so locked in to that, to where I couldn't do anything else. And again, I'm kind of a traditional in the sense of, I don't want to do too much too fast on the first date. I know we're on a television show and we want to make it entertaining, but it's going to be certain baby steps, because I think everybody looked in by the time where I was getting my talking to about me almost being off the show. Everybody was like, "Oh, he's so comfortable now. Now he all up on her now," and it was like, well, this is after me having talked to her for 5 weeks, you know what I'm saying? 6 weeks, like I am familiar with her. I am comfortable with her now. It's not where what she was doing earlier was so bad or detrimental. It was just, I was in a space of where this is the very first date. I wouldn't do that on the very first date, not on television. So
right.
You brought that up, the date that where you thought you was going to eliminate. Going into that, did you have a feeling that this might be because you were, let's be honest, you was a little touchy feeling, like, let me see if I can change your mind here. Well,
no,
that's how most man. It came off like you were trying to manipulate her, like don't let me go. Don't do it. Let me grab you closer. Let me hold you tight. It came off a little.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So the thing about it, all of the dates where someone was getting eliminated, I didn't have to eliminate anybody until the very end, and those were probably the only dates where nobody knew. I didn't tell whomever, and obviously we seen what happened. I changed my mind or whatever, because it was purely up to me. Versus in every other scenario or situation, it was a deliberation. The vote had happened already, and it was just it was just someone being sent as the messenger. So regardless of how I was behaving or what it was that I was doing on the date, it wouldn't have changed whether or not I was getting eliminated or not. But I actually had zero clue. I was approaching it like it was another date, like it was just another normal, date. And especially because it was with Alexis. It was like, oh, okay. At that point in time, I probably went on 3-4 dates with her already. If you've seen when it was one of those dates where people were getting a talking to, it was usually a person that wasn't their, connection. It wasn't somebody that was directly involved with them. So for it to come from her, it had me completely off guard. Like if Benicia showed up or something like that, I would have been like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. I already know what this I already know what this is about. What's this? But would it be an Alexis and us having the chemistry that we had at that point in the show? It was just, me being in that space of being comfortable with her and haven't had seen her in a minute, so it wasn't me doing all of the manipulation that everybody tried to make it out to be.
Yeah.
I had a chuckle right there. When you said that, it reminded me of when Chris had to go talk to Chrysanthemum. And
It's
she
like,
came in
what
there
is
like
this?
that, like
Hold on, wait. Mm-mm.
she was like, because we don't even mess with each other like that. I know what you're doing. Just do what you came to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Be like, hold on, I ain't been talking to you like that. So why we here on
Yeah.
this day? What's going on? Mm-hmm.
Whatever thou do is do it quickly.
Do it quickly.
Do it
Right?
quickly.
Do it right now. Hey, you know, you said y'all been on. You and Alexis went on several dates. You know, we know Alexis gets a hard time about giving Ron the run through about religion. You know, when you and Alexis talked about religion, you know, was it more so that she brought up, you know, about your religion, your prayer life, you know, would you pray for, would you do different things? Was she stable with you about the religion situation?
So in other interviews, I kind of just looked at that and said, oh, okay, no, I didn't have that. But I looked at a recent interview that she did, and she kind of mentioned it. And I do remember the conversation of where it was basically she asked, hey, you know, she wants to bring her son up in a Christian household. Like, would I be willing to pray with her? Do I pray? Would I be open to praying together, or, you know, saying praying with her and her son or whatever? And it was like, yeah, because those are things that were just kind of normal to me already. If that's what it is, that, you know, you believe in God, you pray together. If you're in a relationship, you pray for each other, you pray over the house, you do all of those things. So it wasn't anything that I had apprehension about. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm not really that religious, and I'm not in the space of where I've been going to church every Sunday. But am I opposed to going to church? No. You know, it just has to feel right and feel good. And I think that was probably enough for her. And it wasn't any red flag. So it wasn't like where we needed to continue down that space. And I think I've answered that question differently in other interviews, but I hadn't realized what it was for her on the other end of that. And I think looking at that interview kind of gave me some insight of saying, oh, okay, well, that's the reason why this wasn't necessarily as big as a conversation as it was with Ron.
Right.
You know, dealing with Alexis, you guys had some shaky roads too, because going into the ranch situation, she had some feelings like, you know, you had kissed her already. She felt like, yo, I don't know where AJ going. He spent a lot of time with Kyra. You know, we had this, you know, was that intentional, or was that something just by mistake that, you know, I'm feeling Kyra more now than you, Alexis. So we've spent a lot of time together because she was feeling some type of way that you really wasn't spending that much time on the conversations, because you mentioned earlier y'all had y'all conversed a lot. So it's like maybe you have shortened your time up a little bit.
So look, I'm gonna be a little bit more candid, and each one I try to do these interviews differently each time, but still kind of give the same, you know, thing, but kind of give a little bit more insight. Alexis was, if you look at those things where she was saying that I addressed or talked to Kyra first, you got to look at where I was coming from. Kyra was closer, and so it was like, hold on, you want me to walk past her, talk to you, and then come back? You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't ever like she saw me come into a room and made sure that, you know, she was in the proximity to be greeted first. And not to say that she had to initiate the greeting or anything like that. It was just being in the proximity to do it. You know, women know, you know how to drop a napkin or go to the bathroom a couple of times to make sure you've seen or whatever, to have them be like, oh, okay, let me grab you to make sure I'm talking to you. So she was talking to me about stuff like that, and I didn't look at it where it was some type of significant thing that she should be over analyzing who I talk to first, type of thing. But as far as me being in a space of where I felt somebody more than not, that wasn't it. It was more so, okay, I know Alexis is here for me. I'm going to make sure I'm spending time with her, but I don't necessarily have to guard her. You know what I'm saying? So to speak, I was needing to kind of guard Kyra a little bit, because I wanted to, you know, I had interest in her and I wanted to spend time with her too. But I needed to look at and kind of measure how much time she was also spending with Jason. If I'm just being all the way honest, you know, so you got to kind of look and see what that is and how to, okay, what they doing? Or, hey,
Right.
I was unaware of the Jason Liz. Obviously, he didn't care at all. He was doing what he was doing, and off on his own little adventure. So while I'm thinking that I'm kind of shielding Kyra from him or whatever, he was looking at it like,
Yeah, but it seemed like they put you guys in a lot of group dates together, where it was you, Liz, Kyra, and Jason at the same time.
Of them. Yeah,
At least 3 or 4.
Yeah, so when I was watching, like, hold on, man, they matching these cats up to maybe, I don't know, to create drama, show something different. But y'all went on a lot of group dates together.
I was like, awkward.
Or if it was not you and Kyra, it was you and Alexis, and Jason and Liz was there. So they kind of kept you three kind of together a little bit.
And I don't necessarily know why that was, because I only ever had one option in those situations and scenarios. Jason always had two, whether it was
right
and Kyra, or whether it was saying by the time it was me and Alexis and him and Liz, though, that was more of a double date at that point. And I think it was Alexis, or it had to be Alexis. She's the funny one. She was like, "Oh, this feels like the date of the number twos." I was like, "What? Oh, I was like, that's not what this is. Calm down." But just in general, I went on a lot of dates that had Jason be involved in them. Like, I never went on a date really that Joel was there, or
right.
dates like not very many guys. It was always, I don't know why that was. Like, I think that they guessed that me and Jason wasn't gonna step on each other's toes, or that we just had different energy or whatever, and it wasn't gonna be the same. But I don't know. But yeah, I went on a lot of dates with them.
Yeah, you mentioned Kyra earlier, and you're trying to get to know how much of you dating Kyra earlier was, I don't want to say redeem your stroke, but how much of that was trying to redeem how much of that was to redeem yourself for what happened earlier? See, how much of that was like, you know what?
I want to address that so bad, but I'm gonna just leave it all the way alone. Because redeeming your stroke is something completely different than
right.
not having paid.
I'm like, wait,
I apologize. I watched the Big Job video earlier, man. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Big Job video earlier. So the wrong words came in. I mean, redeeming yourself, not redeeming your stroke. So I apologize for that.
You might need a blue chew or something for that right there.
Right.
No, I'm a big fan of his. You know what I'm saying? I love to be in one of his videos or something like that. That's a good dude. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really approach that like I needed to just like redeem myself from that. Like, once we had an understanding of what it was, and just me really kind of filling her out, like, are you serious about giving me a second chance or opportunity of that? And so it wasn't kind of a thing that was brought up too much, probably after, I don't know, after about a week. After about a week, we didn't, that wasn't part of the conversation anymore.
Okay. We know there may be some people watching who don't know that, they gave you the name, or she gave you the name, or friends gave you the name of El Cheapo.
El Cheapo.
And explain that situation to those who are watching who may not understand what El Cheapo means and how your card declined.
I was El Cheapo not because my card declined. I was El Cheapo because she thought that I just didn't pay for the date. She didn't know that the card declined.
Okay. Right.
So she was looking at it from a sense of, here it is, I'm on a date with this guy and he didn't pay for the date. It's very early on in the situation, since like our first date, and he didn't pay for it. He must be, he didn't pay for it. He must be cheap or whatever. And didn't know kind of the backstory until we got on to the show. But she just didn't know that because the date went bad, and it just kind of didn't lend itself to, I already had enough strikes against me at the time. I didn't want to add that to the mix. And so I tried to recover from it, but it, at the time of when we was dating then, I didn't. And I was just lucky enough to get another opportunity and to explain what happened when we saw each other on the show, because I had actually forgot. Like, so when I told about the date, I said it was embarrassing that, my car was declined. But when they, so I mentioned it to a producer, and they went and approached her about it and made sure to kind of get it and capture it. But then they came back to me and was like, yo, she remembers that day a little bit different than you. I was like, what do you mean she remembers it different? Oh, you might want to go ahead and go have a conversation with her, And so then it was like, oh, she didn't know that that's okay. And so we got into it from there.
I thought that was funny too when your mom sat down with you and Kyra. She was like, "No, Dad, that is my rule number one. I don't mess with nobody." I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody did. Yeah, she was like, "Good one." Yeah, she couldn't wait to go ahead and be like, "Yes."
Signify.
Yes. Hold on. Look, it's not just me that's feeling like this. Look, your mama feel this way. So it's like, yeah, what can you do? What can you do at that point?
So,
nothing.
Like,
so dang, you know what I'm saying? She's not a good spades player at all. Like, you're supposed to die with your partner. You know that you see everything. You see that? Right. You see plain as that. I don't know who put that out. I don't know which one put that. You put it out. I know what I put out.
Let me renege in peace, right? Let me renege in peace.
I don't know who reneged. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't know who did it.
Who did it?
Afterwards, after we get alone together, man, why you renege like that? You made me have to go ahead and lie to them people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, let's handle that out over here. Don't do that.
Good spades player, don't you go ahead and renege and act like ain't nothing happened. You keep it rolling. Everybody else got to catch it. Yeah. You pick the book, and even when you get the book, you put it somewhere else.
Who put what down? If you my partner, shut up.
Yeah, you don't stack that book in order. You put that book in the middle somewhere. You got more books going on. I'm not telling my spade hands how I cheat, but
listen, I know we was just playing. So we just played Saturday.
But you just waited. You waited till the show to really explain to her. You didn't call her the next night or the next day and be like, "Yo."
Nah, he said he didn't think about it when she said she didn't. When the producer said she didn't remember it that way.
Yeah.
So when I think about Alexis and Kyra, so you had a conversation at one point where it's like, do I go with what's safe or do I go with, like what's different? And it almost seems like to me, I would think, well, I'll let you say, because you didn't say which one was which, but I would think like Kyra would be kind of safe when you're talking about getting to know people because you already knew her. Alexis, you had to get to know her fresh.
Yeah. So I was talking about a few different things there. So when you're in a relationship, I felt like it was a big thing. It was a whole thing, not just amongst me, but I think you heard Dave speak about it a lot. A safe space. Mm-hmm. And being a safe space to a person, because you had a lot of information that was floating around, and I think that some of the women felt like just because she was having conversations with one woman about something, that she was having the same conversation with everybody, and that wasn't the case. Yeah, so. Man, I don't know what you guys did over there. Back like an echo.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, we checked that out. Go ahead now.
Nope.
Nah.
You still hear it?
Yeah, we still hear it. We ain't got nothing else open.
Okay, well, all right. Okay. So for me, it was just kind of like we talking about what I was looking for and comfortable, right? And so I think whether or not she was into Ron or what their situation was, I was fully aware that she was into me and that there was a mutual chemistry there. And so when you see me talking to her and telling her like she didn't have things to worry about, people look at it and it's like, oh, you strung her along. And it was like, no, I had genuine interest there. Now at the end, you have to make a choice and the decision. It was going to be a tough one either way. I think you could have obviously said the same thing about Kyra, that, if I sent her home, that, I also was stringing her along, telling her that I liked her, you know what I'm saying? But it was only because of how it looked and that I was never her number one. And, and that she was always kind of more into Jason and saying that that's who it was that she was choosing, and she never got to an opportunity where she was forced to pick, you know what I'm saying, type of thing. Like Alexis was forced to pick, and even though it was through a situation where she figured like, oh, okay, we have this difference that's here, I think that they could have worked through that difference, right? And, you know, even when you hear in conversation and interviews later, it's like, yo, this wasn't as big as what it seemed when you watching the show back. I think how they went about talking about it was the thing that was like, oh, okay, boom. Because there was a date that you guys didn't get to see where she let me know she walked off on me, like, you know, she's like, I'm choosing Ron, and walked off. And whether or not the producers knew about it or whether it was supposed to be something that happened and took place, it was definitely something where I was just kind of sat there looking like, oh, okay, well, I'm about to be the next person to be next to the show, because she said she's making a declaration that she's picking Ron, you know, and I knew that wasn't anybody else picking me at the point in time, so I was like, yeah, I'm going.
With no warning, she like there was no argument, there was no discussion. You guys sitting there eating dinner, having conversation, and she just bounced out and said, you know what, I'm gone.
I think it was definitely right after the deliberation where all of the guys had picked Kyra, and that kind of got out to everybody. And so once she had heard, you know, that I picked Kyra and not her, and what our conversations had been and what our chemistry was up until that point. Now granted, you got to realize I'm not seeing her connection and chemistry that she's having with Ron, but she was putting a lot of pressure on me. They're like, hey, you picking and choosing Kyra. But at the same time, I was understanding and knowing that she was picking and choosing Ron. But, you know, I think that that's kind of one of those double standard type of things, or in the difference between a guy dating and a woman dating. I think as a guy, we always look like there's nothing special about me. If I think she fine, there's at least 10 other dudes that think she fine too. And there's no such thing as like really a single woman. It's almost pointless for you to ask that question. You might as well go ahead and shoot your shot and let her determine whether or not she's single or not. You know what I'm saying? So,
who's a snitch? They had you talk about information leaking, man. And information leaked a lot in deliberation. There was somebody delivering, passing on information out of the
carrying bones.
There was snitching. And everybody got a clue. Who do you think was snitching?
Who do I think was snitching? I think that people was talking. You know what I'm saying? Okay, I won't throw them all. You know what? Hey. But no, I still won't throw them under the bus. But it is a strong likelihood that we know who the culprit was that was going around telling everybody what had happened. But obviously, the only person that wasn't aware, surprisingly, some type of way, was Bernicia. So she was left out of that, you know, information traveling around until several days later when we was on the ranch.
That deliberation, I was like, okay, you get a Kyra, you get a Kyra, you get a Kyra, we all get a Kyra. I'm like, everybody picking Kyra. Where this come from?
Y'all was surprised.
She was the flavor of the month.
I guess so. You know, and rightfully so. But you know, all of the women had their things that was really special about them in their own way. I think at that point, the thing that, you know, Kyra was easier to talk to. And she kind of took an interest in what men were saying and following up in a different type of way than a lot of the other ladies. And she, at least when it comes to me, that wasn't ever really part of our conversation. You know, who's the number one or what? And notice I never got into that at all.
Right.
I wasn't ever really saying like, oh, this is my number one or number two or number three. It was just whether or not if I had you in consideration for, you know, one of the people that I'm interested in or not. Like, and that's kind of how I put it. You know, so they were trying to get me to rank it, even with the production. I wasn't giving them kind of a rank.
Yeah, but you knew who you was feeling though. But you wouldn't put them in order.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah, he
changed.
said he had them
Like,
five.
it was changing so rapidly. Again, I know the way it's cut and the way you see it, it seems like I was saying Kyra from day one the whole time, but that wasn't necessarily the case. Again, like I'm saying, I was naming all five, you know what I'm saying, people, and they was just able to edit it and make it seem like, okay.
Whatever happened with you and Stacy? Because there was a little something there too that we saw you and Stacy at the mixer. Well, not the mixer. Yeah, the day 2 at the brunch. Y'all had long conversation. You sitting there. Ida comes in and who breaks it up in the middle. But you and Stacy look like y'all was on the way to fulfilling having a good relationship.
Yeah. So it was just we didn't go on any more dates. We had one group date, and we didn't get to really interact. And by this time, the whole dating off of the show type of thing was dead. They had already figured out about that. It was after our Illit Bias party that we all had as a crew, and so I think everybody had to come on notice to not do anything else that was not a part of what was happening on the show, what it would be like off the show. So as far as me being able to see her again in the context of the show, it just didn't happen.
Right.
So is that the party that you allegedly left Alexis up in a room for 2 hours?
Yeah, that would be that part.
Okay. Yeah. I heard your explanation on that, but I had the same mindset you had when I first heard the story. Ron said, like, this is a grown woman. Why would she sit in a room 2 hours like a teenager waiting on a dude? That was just my thought.
There were other women there. It was like 3-4 women that was there. They was smoking hookah. They was talking and whatever. Now, if she was tired and wanted to lay down, that's a different story. But that's not the way the it's painted, right? You know what I'm saying? If she was in there like, I'm gonna lay down, I'm gonna take a nap, or I'm gonna chill out, or whatever. Okay, that's cool. That's different. But to make it seem like, okay, I'm gonna wait in this room while everybody else is out here having a good time talking and drinking and doing what they're doing, but I'm just sitting in the room waiting on AJ to come upstairs. I had no clue.
Got you.
Right.
On Alexis too, before y'all went to the bell tower, Alexis had a blow up. You was all in the room. Y'all played Truth or Dare. Alexis had to blow up, or kind of the blow up on Amber. What were you thinking when you saw Alexis go off? She called her Judas, and it was getting hot and heavy. Were you saying, like,
man? So go back and watch it. I was look. Anytime any type of level of drama happened or came about, I was usually out of there. So you see me get up, and I drink, and then I come back, and then they cut me out of the scene. So I was back there like this. Because by that time it's like midnight. It's like 12:30, and we've been there since 7 o'clock in the morning, or like earlier than that. And I was like, okay, we talking about this again? Because for me, this was a done deal. Everybody heard about this already. We talking about this again? Oh, okay, yeah. And so, I kind of already knew the story about what had happened with Amber and Ron. The only thing I didn't know was what happened with Liz and David. Because I heard it already from one side. I was like, okay, now I'm interested to hear this from the other side. So I kind of, you see me set up, and do that. And when they showed me holding her hand, I was like, oh, this is an interesting story here. I was awake for that. Because it was just a different thing I hadn't heard.
They didn't really dig too much into the show. They didn't really dig. We saw the Liz, we saw the David. But from the men perspective, we all know David was self-eliminated. Tommy never got into it as much as what we saw. How do you guys feel that once you heard that side of the story, and when you watched it, what are you like? Dang, dude, is that the type of David you knew? Like, dog, you went off to the left like that?
Yeah, no. Like, so from the deliberation thing, it was like they didn't approach it. So it was just kind of one of those things where when they gather us together, they take forever as production they have you in holding room, they have you waiting to go ahead and go on set. And so most of the time, by this point, we were all coming late because we knew production was going to take forever. And so whatever time we were supposed to be there, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to get there about 30 minutes later than that. And so we were like production and us were playing this game of, well, I don't want to sit around and wait on them. And so since they're coming late, we gonna be late, and then we would be late. And so it was just I don't know if we didn't really realize that 2 people had been eliminated, and so they were saying, okay, it's time for us to go ahead and go on set. And it's like, wait, we still missing Ron and David. Oh yeah, they not. Yeah, it was like, oh. So like so you're seeing kind of a genuine reaction. They held certain information back so they could get a genuine reaction out of us, and it wasn't something where we had to act. A lot of people think that a lot of stuff was scripted. It wasn't. Now, what they did do was they stirred the pot. Now, how they stirred the pot was, you don't really know, because you went back to them and say, hey, I didn't have this conversation with this person like this, but somehow this information got out and we're trying to say that it came from this person, but it doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? Or they'll tell one person one thing and then tell another person something else. And then when it happened, when we look like, what is this? What's going on? Oh, we had no idea. And it was like, you had to have some type of. So they put a lot of people in a lot of different trick bags, as you can see. Like I don't think that any of the dates where there were 2 women, I don't think that at least one of the women knew that it was going to be the other woman that was there. So when you see the Kyra, Chrysanthemum, Alexa, like those are real reactions. It's not
right.
Right.
So you at the ranch. You and Jason outside. Tommy comes up. Tommy tells you, bro, it's good. Go downstairs, right? Jason chooses Liz. Then chooses Liz right there. Did you know he chose Liz at that point?
No, I was trying to go ahead and see some stairs that was right there. I was trying to be I was trying to, they made me go way far away. They said, you know what, matter of fact, go to your room. So I went back to my room. I didn't know. I couldn't hear anything about any of that, because all of that was happening. What would have made a difference?
If you had overheard him saying, you know what, I chose Liz, right? And you hadn't chose Alexa and Kyra yet, would that made a difference in your decision?
I think that was like a Tuesday or Wednesday, right? And so that like happened on, and we didn't do eliminations until in every other situation. I don't think we did it until like a Thursday. So in my mind, I'm thinking that I still have an opportunity to still have both women there, kind of the situation. So, they ask you every day and everything, who's in top, who's bottom. If you had to vote for somebody to go home today, who would it be? And this time around, I'm just kind of like, okay, wait. If I pick this wrong, somebody could end up going home that I don't want to go home. So I just really just picked. And they was like, okay, you'll get some more time, but you're going to pick. But I thought it was going to be like later. It came back like 15, 20 minutes later. Like, okay, you can go and take both of them, and you can choose one, and then one's going on. Who you want to date?
Oh, wow.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Because if you'd have found out Jason chose Kyra, would you have still chose her?
Man, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I think I would have still did everything the same, because after I thought about it for a long period of time, it wasn't up to whether or not Jason picked her or not, or whether or not I had a stronger connection with Alexis or not, or if it felt more safe or comfortable. It's like, oh, okay, I can see this being something where we're not, the situation with Kyra was definitely more unsure, for sure. And so that's what I'm talking about when I said safe. It wasn't, Alexis being boring or anything. It was just a more sure understanding about where I felt like we were versus with Kyra and me trying to get, hey, where are we, what's this, and her not kind of giving a clear answer on that.
Yeah. And I like the way you explained that too. You weren't looking at it as, is this the right or wrong choice? But you put in perspective, it's like, which choice would I regret, like, if I don't go through with it?
Sure.
Where I would feel like, well, what if? So you don't have that what if. Might as well go that way. I was like, okay, that makes sense.
What was the determining factor when you were sitting there holding Kyra's hand? Because you had already told her she was gone. What made you kind of change your mind? Was it the fact that you was holding her hand? The fact that you looked in her face, you didn't want to hurt her?
Man, I was trying to look in her face to see some type of level of emotion. And I was holding her hand like, yo, because I had told, so I dated her first, and I was with the producers, and I was kind of like, yo, I'm going to ask her where she at. And if she's still waffling around and doing what she's doing, she better be out of here. And so I didn't realize that I could change my mind. They kind of let me know that it was possible for me to change my mind, and I can do whatever it is that I wanted to do. And it was me holding her hand and staying there and having that conversation with her, and finally starting to see just a little bit of something of her breaking just a little bit, just like, oh, okay, like I can invest more time in this, and I can go ahead and continue on with this. And I didn't feel like because you can see it a little bit. I don't know if y'all can see it. It was like, but at first she was just looking like, oh, okay. I was like, dang, because I spent most of the night with her before that. So we had spent a good portion of that evening together and talking and chilling out with each other. And I thought that like made all of the difference. I'm like, she can't see this being anything after this evening that we just had, then I don't know. I'll let it go.
So she gave you that little glimmer of hope.
Yeah, I guess. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Just like, okay, this is means something more than it's just kind of like, cool type of thing. She had some emotions into it.
So after you said you went on a date with Kyra first. So after you had Kyra first and you went on a date and you made your decision to stay with her, how difficult were you agonizing over what you had to tell Alexis?
Man, that was beyond tough.
Yeah.
That was, so then I had to go change into something else and then come right back and have a date with her. And I didn't have any room to do anything else but to send her home.
Right.
And, it was her birthday was coming up, our birthday was like that weekend, and we had been talking about, me being at her birthday party and me doing something special for a birthday, and me taking her out for a birthday. Those, like, all of those conversations happened, and then for me to have had to make a choice to where all of that possibly wasn't going to take place. So that's, and then we were like way out in the country, and all of us drove out there. And that was the day that we were leaving. So now you just was told that you were ready to love. I had to do that. And then we have an hour and a half drive back into Houston.
Wow.
And it was just one of those things where it's like, I knew not to call her, but I just wanted to make sure that she was okay and good. So I kind of called everybody to reach out to her and say what was going on.
My other question for you is this: did her having a son have anything to do with your decision?
Yeah, definitely. And we had that conversation. It wasn't a determining factor, but was it something to consider? For sure. But it wasn't anything to where it made her less than or anything. But does that mean that she came with more responsibility and that I had to be more serious with her than I could be or would be with somebody that's single and doesn't have kids? Absolutely.
Got you.
So you picked Kyra, you had to let Alexis go.
Mhm.
And then when it came back around where both of y'all had to make a decision to choose each other, Kyra doesn't choose you. In that moment, are you like, God dog?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's like, ain't this about?
It's about a.
And so I don't think the thing. I don't remember because again, watching it back, it was kind of like definitely reliving that experience. So I watched it, but I didn't watch it. Did they really show the gift that she gave me?
No.
No, see, exactly. Because everybody was supposed to do a gesture, right? You had to have a gesture of like commitment or committing to the relationship that you were trying to have. And mine was, of course, me making and having a song and, what I'm saying, creating this romantic space of, playing a song. Because she continues to always talk about like, yo, I've never heard you play the piano or I've never seen this. So that's why you even hear me say, well, now I've played the piano for you, right? So her gift back to me, because she got me a gift, it was her saying that she needed more time and she got me a pocket watch. And it was just kind of like, man, it was a dope watch, but it was symbolic of her needing more time. But it definitely felt kind of like a constellation prize. It definitely kind of felt like a constellation prize versus what it was that I was asking for and wanting.
So, but did you feel like, us watching, and we watch other reality shows, did you feel like, I'm not asking you to marry me, I'm asking you to date me?
Well,
It's
no,
like, so what
no. Me looking at that show in previous seasons, it was about ending in a committed relationship. I mean, you even hear Tommy say that to the women. Hey, after you leave here today, you're leaving in a committed relationship. He didn't really put that much emphasis on it for us, but I already knew that was the end goal of the show. So that's why you hear me. I'm presenting a relationship. I didn't present, hey, let's continue to date. I said, hey, are we in a relationship? I think she had the same understanding too. And she was just like, no, I don't feel strong enough connection with you right now to be in a committed relationship, but we can continue to date. And so let's keep dating. But of course, the way they cut it, you don't really get to see all of that.
So did y'all keep dating?
Again, I didn't remember whether or not you can even know that she got me a gift or gave me a gift. She gave me a gift.
Mm-hmm.
So did y'all keep dating after that?
I won't get too much away. Still a little bit left. But yeah.
Right.
I just wanted to throw a curveball. Okay. And that's one thing, being in a committed relationship, I think that's where it becomes, when you watch the show, is like, okay, are they just to be continue to date, or is it really a committed relationship? And I think that what scares some people off, that I'm gonna have to commit to this person. And I think, but I also looking at her like, did you not know that you wasn't going to commit when he told you that he was going to keep you? To me, I was like, she had an opportunity then to say, you know what, you let me go, but I'm not going to commit to you.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying? Sure. Like, she knew I just feel like she already knew that she wasn't going to commit. And to me, just the woman thing would have been like, you know what, AJ, let me go, because I can't make a decision right now. That was her whole thing at the ranch. When she talked to Jason and when she talked to you again, she couldn't commit.
I don't want to be forced to make a decision on anybody's time besides mine.
Did you ever ask her, like, why you was there? Did you commit to me? Are you going to commit to me before y'all even got to the decision day? Or I don't want to say decision day.
No, I didn't do anything like that. But I understood where she was coming from. Because again, the way you see it, it makes it seem like from day one, I was putting in this massive effort towards Kyra. I wasn't. For like the first 3 or 4 weeks, trying to get to know everybody else because I already knew her.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But did I make known off camera and that I was interested in her, but I wanted her to have a full opportunity to explore what was there because she had a very strong interest in being in a relationship afterwards. So, like she was put herself open to finding a husband.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like we was on the same page in that space, regardless of what it is that you got to see on the show.
Got you. Were you, when you with, again, you and Kyra got to that point, did you ever think about playing the game, the numbers game? Knowing if like you seem like an intellectual dude, like if I get 2 or 3 women to like me, that I can stay here toward the end.
So no, not in that sense. But you look at your connections and you look at the other connections that they had. Did I have to worry about Alexis staying around? No, Ron was choosing her all the time. And did I get to a point of where I was like, all right, and I'm strategic about this to keep the person that I wanted to keep on the show, which was Cynthia. Like, but they asked me first. So you know what I'm saying? If they would have asked in any other order, I would have picked Chrysanthemum. But then I think that would have messed up how the story was, and they would have probably played it almost kind of like how they did Joel. Like Kyra, like, okay, you haven't had any dates with Chrysanthemum. Why and how are you picking them? But they changed the question. The question was not who's your number one or who's your top big or who's your top 3, which was the questions that they were asking. The question became, if there was the end today, who would you leave with today? And the producers made a point to give it like a speech before we had the deliberation. They said, hey, look, this is about the time that folks start playing games. I promise you, if you start playing games, picking stuff, you're gonna be gone. And like, you have to make this make sense in the context of the show. And then I think that they were looking right at me and kind of just already knew. And so they started the deliberation off with me.
Got you.
Who are you gonna pick? But if I would have heard 3, 4 Kyras, you know what I'm saying? I would have been like, oh, hold on, wait a second. Let me go ahead and pick, Chrysanthemum, and then at that point, they would have either had to eliminate Liz or eliminate Renisha or somebody, because nobody mentioned Liz, Renisha, or Chrysanthemum. So I was open and thinking like, yo, she wasn't on anybody's bottom per se. It was just people kind of was looking like, all right, I don't like the fact that Chris and Stacey are always together. But at this point, Stacey is gone. So ain't no Chris and Stacey, ain't no freaking frat. You know what I'm saying? I was thinking that she was going to still be there. And I made it's a big speech and stuff that I made about it. And I talked about, I could just as easily see myself possibly leaving with her. But I didn't like her phone etiquette type of thing. She had, little rules and stuff about how to hit her up, when to hit her up. And it was just kind of like, it was like an extra added obstacle. So I couldn't. Yeah.
So who came up with the name freaking frat? I'll ask everybody this. No one was able to pinpoint who gave them the name freaking frat.
They did. They gave themselves that name as far as I know. It wasn't any of the guys.
See, Stacey acted like she didn't know who gave them the name freaking frat. That didn't come from them. That it came from a guy. Or somebody.
If it came from somebody, I don't know. It definitely didn't come from me. Because I didn't know they weren't freaking frat to me until the masquerade ball, and then obviously then they came out as freaking frat, and they was kind of together. But before then, I didn't know. Now, did I know that they were hanging out, and did I know that they were together, you know what I'm saying, at times when I was calling them? Sure, but everybody was hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't like the fact they were hanging out. Their conversations would go back and forth between the two.
Sure.
So information may be shared. Shit. So, you wrapped it up with Kyra. You heartbroken. What happened that night?
He didn't say he was heartbroken. Don't be putting words in that man's mouth.
Hold up. I didn't say, look, hold up.
Don't do that.
Hold on. He may not say it, but let's be honest. He a grown man. Dog. He chose somebody who kind of didn't want to be committed to him. Whether your heart is fully broken or not, you was upset.
Yeah. Oh, now that's different.
You a little heartbroken.
Yeah,
it's a little heartbroken.
Yeah, that's different.
You feel like you got to. Okay, you got to. Let's do like men. You got to punch in the gut.
And I said that. I said it was definitely a blow. I said that. I was like, yo, it was definitely something I wasn't expecting. Of course, if I knew any of that, I would have done something different. I don't know, but I wouldn't have just walked into that blind. I got blindsided right there. It kind of felt like a little bit.
What happened when you told your mama? I know you ain't never probably ever get that question. When you told your mama, guess what this girl did? What your mama say?
Man, mama, I'm trying to remember how did I have that conversation if I had it. I think I kind of chilled out. I can't really. But look, and I don't want to give anything away. It's some stuff I did.
Okay, got you.
I didn't just take that and then just, you know what I'm saying.
Right off
take
to the sunset. I got you.
No.
Yeah. Right. All right. Okay.
So we can leave it right there because we got the reunion coming up this Friday. So we leave it right there, and maybe we get you back to explain some of the stories a little bit later.
No, I'm probably not going to explain none of that. No. Oh no, I'm not going to explain nothing. I'm doing my interviews all right now before the reunion, and we ain't gonna. Nobody talk to me after the reunion. Don't talk to me.
Don't nobody ask me nothing.
Don't ask me nothing. I'm free. Leave me alone. I'm done. I'm changing my name, Instagram. Just leave me alone. But now we enjoy, you came off as you wasn't a villain, but you came off as the intellectual guy who had a choice between two women. Sure. And I think that's where that's where they looked at, and you can see where you had a dilemma because you knew one in the past, you had built a relationship with one currently, and it's like, where do I go? And I think you're at the point what's so intriguing because you were the only one really who had to make a decision at the end.
That's what I keep saying. I'm pointing out to people, like I'm the only one that had to make the hard choice. Like, I feel like everybody else's situations kind of blew up or kind of lended to, where they had some type of ridiculous conversation or tough conversation where it was like, oh no, I'm not fooling with that. Oh no, I'm not doing that. I didn't have any of that going on. I felt like it was a genuine connection. Now, obviously, again, I can't see the stuff that was happening when I'm not there or know how those other connections look. I only saw that on the playback. And then you look and go, oh wow, you know what I'm saying, away or whatever. But I know what was happening, at least in the conversation with me and why I was present that was there. And everything that I was doing.
Got you. All right, before we let you go, a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Give me the first thing that comes to your mind. All right. I'm gonna ask you a question. Give you two choices. You pick one of the choices. All right.
Cool.
Ready? Kobe or Michael Jordan?
Michael Jordan. I'm from Chicago.
I know. I knew that. I just wanted to see. I wanted to see. I got you.
That's a no-brainer.
I just know it was a no-brainer. That was an easy one.
Right.
I got that. I knew he's from Chicago. So
yeah.
I knew everybody from Chicago worship Michael Jordan. It is what it is. everybody was Michael Jordan fan. You grew up in Chicago and you weren't a Michael Jordan fan. You just
something wrong with you.
Just ostracized.
I know you could have been an Isaiah Thomas fan.
Ain't nobody like
from Chicago.
Isaiah's from Chicago.
I know, but still, he a
nobody.
Bad boy Piston.
Yeah, you couldn't. Even though he's a Chicago boy, he played for the Pistons. He was the one that stopped Mike many from getting his championship. Wasn't nobody rocking with Isaiah like that. And we know a lot of brothers wouldn't rock with Isaiah because him and Magic would kiss in the middle of the court. You know, and look, let's be honest. And I'm a Magic fan. I'm a Laker fan to the diehard. And you know, a lot of people in the hood
I hated the Lakers. I did not like the Lakers.
Oh man,
Don't do that.
I did not. Nah. I didn't like the Lakers until they had like Lottie Divac, and you know what I'm saying. They had like an all-star team.
Yeah,
and then Phil Jackson came and then turned it all around. You know.
Yep.
So
he came and turned it around. So there's some struggling years. Here we go. Fried chicken or ribs?
Fried chicken.
DMX, Snoop.
Oh, that one's tough. Both. I don't know.
Got one or the other.
Snoop was definitely when I was younger. I definitely say DMX now.
Okay.
All right.
John B. a Babyface.
Come on, is that a question for real? Babyface.
Yo, dog, hey, man.
Babyface wrote all the John B stuff. What are you talking about? It was
Hello.
Like, it was like Babyface light. What are you talking about?
Not Babyface light, right?
I know, but I'm just.
It's three people that made music that no matter who that they made music for, you immediately knew. Oh, I know who wrote this.
It was them.
It was them.
Yes.
Eddie Riley.
Yes.
Babyface. And R. Kelly.
Absolutely.
It was one of those people that was
Yes.
like, I know who wrote this immediately.
Definitely. Are you a last one? Are you romantic dinner or a quiet walk on the beach?
Man, I'm kind of probably neither. I'm in the hammock, chilling out, drinking a Bahama. What is it, Bahama Mama? In the hammock, and chilling.
Just chilling, keeping your feet up. Yeah, and that's what.
Wait, you forgot
I'm sorry.
because you grew up in church. Is that what you used to go to church?
Mm-hmm.
You forgot. You got to do Clark sisters or Pace sisters.
Clark sisters.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Quick. That's quick. Come on now.
Throw that one in
I got that. No,
you always got to throw that one in there.
Easy.
Which Clark sister?
That I don't know. I'm not gonna go ahead and go that deep into it, but I know I like their music better than Faces.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. If you was asked to do the show again, we know Chris did it twice. Mm-hmm. If you was asked to do the show again, come on season 5, would you do it?
No, because it's in DC. Would I do a dating show like this again, or would I do this show again? It didn't leave a bad taste in my mouth. It didn't. I was one of those people that kind of came out unscathed, so to speak. We'll see. We still got a little bit of show left. Like I said, don't ask me nothing after this. Don't ask me.
We not.
No little left for the show. We, like I said, no regrets. Enjoy the fact that you did it. The fact that you met some good people. You interact with good fans. If you have somebody who's watching us that interested in DC, what advice would you give them?
You gotta be almost like Marcus Graham, man. You gotta root folks out fast. They got they pinky toe or whatever. Like, rule them out. Like, you gotta get it down to where you can really focus and build the strongest connections that you have as early as possible. And that's difficult when you're faced with at least 5 or 6 women that you find attractive. When you go ahead and get the attractive part out of the way, what else is important to you, right? And so you got to kind of have those conversations pretty fast.
No problem, man. Yo, we appreciate your time. Appreciate you for joining us. Any questions? You done? You good?
No, I don't have anything. I like you. You're reminiscent of Jay right now with the hat.
Yeah, look, I'm not on Jay's level. Jay got, some hats. I told him I need to get a hat from him. I think he got a whole hat line coming out of doing something. And it's like, man. But I need a couple of them.
Yeah.
Tell him hook you up.
Yes, sir.
It suits you. It suits you.
Anything that you want to promote, if anybody want to reach out to you on social media, man, how can they contact you at the social media? Now, you got to do it before the reunion because he ain't taking no more. So
people always ask me what have I produced. I have a whole project that I produced from front to back for Rochelle Gemini. It's called Yes for Me in My House. So it's definitely about women empowerment and dealing with a journey of self-exploration almost. And it's kind of just a recipe for how to love yourself better. Yeah,
got you. If somebody want to get that, how can they get that?
Man, you get it on any streaming platform that's in existence right now. Rochelle Gemini, Yes for Me in My House.
Got you, man. We appreciate it. Hey, AJ, man, we appreciate you for taking your time with us. Hey, we appreciate you for being honest, answering our questions, and we just thank you for all that you've done, man. Thank you for sharing your life or your dating experience with us on Ready to Love for that season. And it was a fresh air to see somebody intellectual, somebody that was able to handle and make the tough decisions look easy.
Man, I appreciate you. They weren't easy. I think a lot of people are able to have an opinion about, what they would have done or what they saw or whatever. But it wasn't easy. And for the most part, I feel like the people that were there this season were all genuine and there for the right reason.
Yeah, and I think this cast was a different type of cast from the cast in the past. Mm-hmm. You guys were different, and maybe because you wasn't all cooped up on a resort, that you were at home and you had the freedom and to be able to maneuver and you handle things like grown-ups and adults. All right, close up.
I don't have anything else to say. We just appreciate you allowing us to interview you. It was really good talking to you. We appreciate it.
Hey,
man, thank you. You guys were awesome. You didn't go ahead and put me into too many trick bags. Except for being the stroke comment. No.
Hey, bro. Sometimes, like I said, me and Big Job watched the video, but I meant redeem yourself. But it just came out stroke. But hey, if you would have said, you know what, yeah, I'll try to redeem it, it would have been
exactly.
Right. Like one of those moments, But nonetheless, man, enjoy your candidness. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, hit the subscribe button, hit that share. Hit the notification bell. Make sure you share it with somebody else. And that being said, we'll catch you down the road.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all. Peace.